Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB number 4B51 5x5 630. NRP is what this is. So this is a hinge. Here it is, made by a company that does exclusively hinges. I don't know that they get into anything else that isn't hinge related. And I was told one time by a not insignificant fellow in the world of hollow metal doors and frames, he said, figure out what you do and sell the SHIT out of it. And that's what PBB does. They're really good at the hinge game in the sense of good quality, good value, phenomenal customer service, and very deep inventory. So the 4B51, let's take some dimensions. This is a 5x5 hinge. It's 5 inch tall and it's 5 inch wide. It's important to know that the height is the first dimension. Maybe not, you might, like me, be able to survive on ignorance as to how that is for a while, but you, like I did, may learn the hard way that the height is the first dimension. I didn't always have that understanding. Not such a big deal if your hinges are always square, same height, same width, but not so good if they're 8x6 or 4.5x7 or 5x4.5, or, you know, you get the picture. Thickness is supposed to be 190 thousandths. This is my calipers telling me about 185 thousandths, and that's certainly within tolerance. So the height first, it's a 5x5 hinge, it's heavyweight, and that's inferred in the part number, which means it is nominally 190 thousandths. Now, where would you use this? Let's take a moment and discuss that. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, we've talked about the size of this hinge. Now let's talk about the application of where you will use this. So first of all, it's a 5 inch tall hinge. The height is the first dimension, likely because it's the more important of the two that you want to know first. They're both important, but which one is more important to know first? It's probably the height. Determining where this is used, I'll approach it from considering what it is. So what it is a 5 inch tall heavyweight hinge. That tells me that this is going to be a hinge that's going to be used on likely a heavy door, but specifically a wider door. As your door gets wider than 3 foot, it's definitely time to start considering something taller than 4.5 inch. If 4.5 inch is the benchmark for typical 3 foot doors, consider 5 inch hinges for doors wider, and you'll see in specifications 3.6, 3.8, and 4.0, they're going to be 5 inch tall hinges. Absolutely. Heavyweight? Absolutely. You're dealing with a heavier than average door. You're dealing with a door with higher volume. And you, again, are dealing with a wider door. Now, that all colludes and makes sense. Before we talk about the width, it has a non-removable pin feature. That's going to tell me that this door is likely going to swing out, or it's going to swing to a space that you want to be able to make it difficult to be able to drive that pin out so that you can remove the door and get into, you know, the interior side of this door, or the push side of the door. So it's likely an exterior door that swings out. Now the width is the funny part. The only reason to have a 5 inch wide hinge is when your application requires it, meaning any hinge will get you to 90 degree, but when you go out past 90 degree, it's the vertical axis of pivoting that you're rotating around that you have to start to think about in terms of what field conditions are there that may present themselves as an obstacle to the door getting to 90 degree and further than that. You could have a wall condition. You could have chair rail, baseboard. You could have something applied to the face of the wall that's projecting off, that if you want the door to go out past 90, 110, 145, 180 degree, you've got to calculate what clearance is required. Moving the vertical axis of pivoting out further allows you to get that door out and around more material that could be installed in there. So if you had a narrower hinge, that vertical axis of pivoting is moved in closer. So that's why you are going to think about what you're going to need. The fact that it's 5x5, you know, it's just easy to say 5x5. Do you need a 5-inch wide hinge? Likely no. Should you determine what width of hinge you need? Every time. And how you determine that, basically, well, we'll talk about that when we switch to the screen view. And it's very likely that a 5x4.5 is a better choice. So be mindful. We'll talk about how you figure out the width of the hinge shortly, but just don't accept 5x5 as the right hinge. Like 4.5x4.5 is generally accepted. Well, that's the hinge, and it works almost in every application. But is it the right hinge? Is it the best choice? It's not in most applications. So this is a box of 3. This is going to include enough screws to do either wood or metal applications. Yeah, it will. Don't count on the factory sending the right type of screws. Let's talk about these. 1224 flat thread forming undercut head is what these are. The wood screws are 12 by 1.25 threaded to the head, flathead wood screws. Phillips drive on everything. When you're ordering these hinges, by all means, tell us what the composition is of the door and frame to make sure that the onus is on the factory to ship the hinges out with the correct fasteners. Let's switch to the screen view and let's talk about not only how to determine width, but let's talk about first some supporting documentation that we have. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Here is the hinge that we are looking at. Let's take a look at first some photos that we have posted. There's the label. Let's dissect this part number. 4B51, 5x5, 630 NRP. So it's a 4, which means it's heavyweight. When you see a 4 in the part number from PBB, that stands for heavyweight. A standard weight hinge would be just a BB51, and that would be 140 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness. B means ball bearing. On heavyweight hinges, you are going to have 4 bearing packets. The 51 tells us it's 5 knuckle, it's full mortise, and that it is a stainless base material. The most durable of all finishes would be considered 630 or US 32D. It's what's called a natural finish. If you want the most durable finish, then you're going to want a solid stainless base material with a brushed finish. 5x5 is obviously the size. NRP, non-removable pin, we discussed that. That's what the hinge looks like. Another view. Yet another view. Just showing you, what that image is going to look like, the color is going to look like based on how the light hits it. This is a image showing you how the leaves are bent. This is what makes it a full mortise hinge. The fact that the swag on these hinge leaves, when they're brought parallel to each other, it's a 1/16 of an inch between the two leaves. The backside, PBB does a good job at finishing the backside. Not every manufacturer does. Their finish is nice and clean too. Right in here. That's the trouble area for hinge manufacturers. They do a good job getting that finished. The backside's important, especially with a hinge that's wider than necessary, because you're going to see some of that when the door is closed. A close-up of the finish, the NRP feature and the logo, which I wish was about maybe 40% smaller. That would be nice. Fasteners, these are just the wood screws. Machine screws are going to be included with that. Then we have a cut sheet. This is handy because it will show you the 4B51 in its 3 sizes that it can be ordered in. It also tells you that if you want a steel-based hinge, use an 81. Brass, use a 21. Okay? Gives you the other details of this. You'd include this in your submittal package. Then we have a template that's below this video as well. This will show you the location of the screw holes, which are called the template pattern. Table down below gives you the different part numbers based on how it's made, which really is just base material. Will tell you the leaf length dimension, the S dimension, the L dimension, the E dimension. That's all here. A 1/16 of an inch between the leaves when they're brought parallel. other details down below. It's just a summary of what we've already discussed. Now there is a link below this video as seen here to the manufacturer's page. You can click on that and you will then be able to pull up not only all of the PBB products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the product catalog. And this is where we're going to be able to segue into our discussion on how to determine what width of hinge you should be ordering. So every good hinge manufacturer's catalog is going to include encyclopedic reference material, regardless of you being an architect or an engineer or a specifier or a designer or an owner or a distributor or a contractor, general or sub. Having a working knowledge of hinge terms is certainly beneficial, and this catalog will provide you with that. If you are a distributor and you're earlier in your career, I would recommend reading this through at least once, and then you'll end up consulting it for the rest of your career. Reading it through at least once, maybe twice, will give you the ability to know where the information is that you want to access. Meaning, what is a half surface swing clear hinge going to look like? Yeah, it's right there. What does it look like when the doors open at 90 degrees? Well, it's right there. This would be a full surface. This would be a full half mortise. Full mortise swing clear. Full surface hinges, full mortise hinges. Now, as we continue to scroll through, you'll just find other encyclopedic references, a finished chart, the breakdown of how PBB part numbers are put together. That's really handy. Certifications, security features around this page, decorative tips, and then it starts with the products. So let's take a look at the determining of the width. On page 5 of their catalog, or the 5th page of this PDF, they give us the formula, and it's super easy. What, you know, don't memorize it. There's no reason to. Just bookmark this page. Take the door. So now we're going to determine how wide of a hinge you need. Take the door thickness minus the back set times 2 plus clearance plus inset. Okay. So I intentionally said that quickly. Let's slow down. You take the door thickness and you multiply that by 2. I'm sorry. You take the door thickness and you subtract the back set. So on an 1 3/4 thick door, that back set's generally a 1/4 inch. If you're dealing with a 5-inch wide hinge, you could have a 2 1/4 inch thick door, and it would be typical to not use a 4.5 on a 2 1/4 inch thick door. So if someone comes in and says, I need hinges for a 2 1/4 inch thick door, yeah, 5-inch wide is probably a good choice. So you should be looking at that. The height, you know, 4.5, 5-inch, depends on the width and the weight. But 5x5 is a good, reasonable Swiss Army knife for a 2 1/4 inch thick door. But again, doesn't mean it's the right hinge. So door thickness minus back set. You'll have to measure that on the existing door and frame, or you'll have to know that. Then you multiply that by 2. So door thickness, let's say it's 2 1/4. Minus back set, let's say that's 3/8. Okay, so now we're dealing with 1 7/8 times 2. That's 3 3/4. You then add to that your inset, let's say that's 0. And let's say your clearance is 1 inch. So 3 3/4 plus 1, you round to the next available width, that would be 5-inch. So 5x5 would work. As you play with all of these variables, you're going to get a net result that will be different sometimes. You always round up to the next commercially available width. The point of all of that is this. 5x5 may not be the best choice. 5x4.5 may be a better choice. 5x4 may not be a hinge that you can get out of inventory quickly. That's fairly rare. But I would argue if you had a 3/6 door, 3670 16 gauge stairwell, you're going to use where the frame is it's masonry construction, and you've got a 8 3/4 jam depth, 7 3/4 throat, because you're using 8-inch block, and that door is going to stand off the face of the frame. So it's going to look like this. Eight-inch block. Your frame's going to sit, well, really exaggerated, but that door can go to 90, it can go to 180. That pivot point, you're going to want tucked as close to the face of the door as possible, really to the center line of the door. A 5x5, while it will work, it unnecessarily moves that pivot point out too far. 4 inch is a better choice because you've got 1 3/4 minus quarter is 1.5 inches times 2 is 3. You've got 0 clearance, and your inset is quite small, like 3/32 of an inch. You are barely getting over 3 inch. The next commercially available size is indeed 4 inch. That would be the best choice. Don't default at 5 inch wide. It's probably wrong, is the bottom line. So that's how you will determine that. Also on this manufacturer's page, yeah, not too much else there, unfortunately. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. As I had mentioned initially, PBB is a confluence of really good factors. They've got a good quality product at a reasonable price with very deep inventory and exceptional customer service. You know, the way I like to see it is they're selling Asian manufactured hinges. They're an importer of hinges. They're doing assembly and finishing in the United States, but those components are coming from overseas. No big deal. The country of origin doesn't necessarily matter, but what I'm driving at is when you're dealing with a commodity that this hinge, a 4B51, on its own doesn't differentiate itself from its competition, whether it be from 10 other importers of Asian manufactured hinges. I think that at that point, PBB and the people they compete against, you're not selling me the hinge. You're selling me the service. I send you a PO. Are you sending me a confirmation, a tracking number in a timely fashion? Because that's really what I need. I need the hinge. The hinge just is the, you know, round peg in the hole. It's just the filling of a empty space. It's solving the problem. It's a checkbox on a list. But if I can't get the service I need from the company and the people, then you can buy an Asian manufactured 5x5 heavyweight stainless hinge NRP from countless people. PBB absolutely leads the pack, and as a result, I send as much business their way as I can because we here just need things to operate smoothly and simply is the bottom line. If you have any questions on the 4B51 5x5 NRP 630 or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. Thanks to our clients, Architectural Builder Supply is building an additional facility, and what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which we'll have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet. that will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be architectural builders supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored and stocked there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms, and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.